Hey heathens, this video is very long overdue. One of my very first videos that I did was my How I Became an Atheist video. In fact, it was my second video. No video has been more misunderstood than that one. I cannot tell you how many times Christians have watched that video and gotten the wrong impression. It's funny, atheists seem to get it perfectly, but Christians, time and time again, miss the point. The biggest problem comes because they listen to the video and they determine that the reason I left being a Christian was because of things that happened when I was a small child at my grandfather's church. They fail to comprehend, for some reason, that the story continues on for over a decade before I actually leave Christianity. To clear this up, I did not leave Christianity because of things that happened to my grandfather or because of something that happened at one particular church. I left Christianity because I studied the Bible and realized it was full of crap. The point in when I told that story as to, the whole reason why that was in the story was because I wanted you to understand how I reached the point of studying the Bible on my own instead of just asking my preacher for the answer. I had issues that I was having with certain verses and interpretations with the Bible, and I had these questions and the preachers couldn't answer them, and so after realizing that they didn't have answers, I had to go find the answers. And after trying a few other places and not getting the answers, I realized the only way for me to get the answers would be to trust in God, pray, and find them myself. I was going to be a preacher. I was going to open my own church and do it right this time. The most common question that I get on that video is, well, what were your questions? Alright, if you want to know what my questions are, watch my videos. I go through one of the questions that I have and then each of those videos that have to do with that subject. But I'll give you this one. This was actually the first issue I had with what I perceived to be Christianity at the time. Let me be clearer this time so that not to avoid the confusion of last time. I did not leave Christianity because of the verses and the interpretation that I'm about to explain to you. It was just the first time that I questioned what the preachers were telling me. Okay? So, I grew up in a Pentecostal church. I left that church and went on to another which was just as fundamental as they are. The church that I attended, both of them, the women had to wear dresses. They couldn't wear pants. No makeup. Had to keep their hair long. Guys were to keep their hair short. And weren't supposed to wear shorts. I never understood why. But as a child, you don't question why. You just do what you're told, right? But I never understood what the big deal was about wearing shorts or women wearing pants. So when faced with this big question of trying to understand this, I did what any good Christian would do. I asked the preacher. Don't bother to look it up myself. No need to think. That's what I have him for. Understand, we were taught very, very strongly that the priest was ordained by God. He was blessed, and he had the power to tell us what was what. Okay, whatever. What I got back was Deuteronomy 22:5, which basically says that a woman shall not wear that which pertains to a man. Oh, so pants are for men, and dresses are for women, and so that's what they should wear. Makes perfect sense. But wait a minute, pants didn't exist back in biblical times. Who says that pants are for men? Why can't pants be for women? There are women's pants. They are very different from men's pants. Why should that matter? And weren't the clothes that most of the men wore back then most like dresses? Didn't like that one. But what about but what about like men with long hair? What is long hair? Didn't Jesus have long hair? I was young, naive, had not studied the subject yet. I thought the blonde-headed, blue-eyed Jesus that I saw in all the pictures was what Jesus must have looked like. Surely. No. I got 1 Corinthians 11:14. I did a video on this one verse by itself, and never got a decent answer. It says basically, doesn't nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it's a shame unto him? Where in nature does it show you that a man having long hair will be a shame? But what was interesting after I got that verse is that I read the next verse. 1 Corinthians 11:15 says, but if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. Well, why can't man have his hair for a covering? Didn't make any sense. So I needed to read the Bible. I obviously didn't understand it well enough, so I needed to read the Bible. So that's when I set out on the course, which eventually led me to here. In the process of that, as I'm reading the Bible, and yes, I read the Bible as a believer, wanting to confirm my beliefs, not to test it. That was the last thing I wanted. I wanted to make it solid. I wanted to know that I was right in what I believed. I was reading it as a Christian. I didn't have bias against the Bible. I had bias for the Bible. But then I ran into this verse. 1 Timothy 2:9. Women adorn themselves in modest apparel with shamefulness and sobriety, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly array. And then I looked around me and saw all the women with gold wedding rings, pearl necklaces, fancy hats, and braided hair. Remember, they couldn't cut their hair, so it was really long. So they would braid it and wrap it into a ball. Lots of little girls run around with their braided hair. I'm like, took it to my preacher. It's like, but this says women shouldn't have braided hair. It's, that's not really what it's talking about. It's just meaning, not to show off. It says not with braided hair. If you're going to tell me that these other lines, are supposed to be so specifically read that, not wear that which pertains to a man means that no woman can ever wear pants. But the very specific wording of not with braided hair is just tossed out as, that's not really what they meant. How do you know what it means? And then I did the worst thing you could possibly do as a believer. I sought out someone who disagreed with my opinion. I looked into other denominations who did not have such a strict view of the Bible, and I found people arguing against my preacher who were Christians. These were other believers saying that he was wrong. I'm like, but how could that be? How could he be wrong? He's ordained by God. He must not really be ordained by God. He's not a real preacher. He's one of those false preachers that the Bible tells us about. This guy must be the real preacher. Oh wait, he just said something that I also disagree with. And every preacher, every denomination, every one that I looked into had something else about them that I read the Bible, I don't get that. And I'm looking at it and I see people who make good arguments for why you're wrong. And I found no single denomination that was right. And that led me to deeper question my beliefs. Still, as a believer, I wanted to get it right. So this idea that you guys have that I left the church because of what happened to my grandfather, you missed the point. I left the church because I read the Bible, and it didn't make any sense. And upon further study, it made even less sense. And upon further study, it made perfect sense. As long as you changed your position from God is real to the God of the Bible is not real. Don't take my word for it. Think for yourself.